Welcome, everyone, to the first episode of the Audiolink podcast. My name is Tom, and this is
Brandon.
And we here on this podcast are just bringing you guys along the journey of this company that we've just started called Audiolink. And our mission at Audiolink is to change the game with live sound for the capital C church. It's to bring premium, top-notch live sound to every church that has an internet connection. So super excited about that. We just kind of want to bring you guys along the journey, tell you what's going on with it, and just talk about what we're interested in. We pretty much talk about live sound incessantly, whether it's through Instagram videos we send each other, text messages, fax, email,
lunches with our families where we ignore everyone.
We ignore all the 7 kids present, however many it is.
It's 5.
It's 5.
It's 5 kids present.
I thought you had 5 kids for a second.
I don't know.
That was prophetic. So, yeah, that's what this is about. We would love to take you guys on the journey with us. So listen along if you like sound
and
want to hear us talk. And Jesus.
So there's one thing I want to ask you, and this is funny. I want you to tell the story of when we met, because we met in August of 2022.
We didn't even tell anybody who we were.
Yeah. This is the first episode of this podcast.
Yeah.
There's you ever listen to the first episode of any podcast, it's super cringe.
Oh,
yeah. So this is very cringe.
Yeah.
This is August of 2020 or 2022. Sorry.
Yes, great. So I can tell that story. So I would like to also hear it from your perspective, because my life was an absolute Tasmanian devil at that time, and still is, but it was worse then. So my wife and I moved to Dallas, and to minimize the drama, we I came for a work opportunity. It didn't really, when I say work opportunity, I run my own company, and it was just kind of like one of those, it's just kind of one of those bombs that happen in your life where it's just everything that you could imagine to go wrong kind of goes wrong and feels a little bit out of your control.
It's like the first 3 months after your child's born.
Yeah. You're just at the mercy of, I don't know. Point is, it was supposed to be this long-term working relationship that it was the big driver for us moving to Dallas when we did. We kind of wanted to move down here, but it really pushed us, it pulled us down. And long story short, Brandon knows all about it. I'm not going to go into the details, but it was just a disaster. And we, right after it hit the fan, we go to Upper Room that Sunday with our kids. Now, I don't know if you guys know much about Upper Room, but you have to get there. If you want to go on a Sunday, you have to get there 2 hours early to get your kids into childcare, which they're trying to solve that with this new building. Which if you're watching this, give to the new building. I feel like I'm brainwashed now to just say that.
Oh gosh, that's real.
But I mean that. So we want to get in there, literally just selfishly for the sake of my kids. So long story short, we don't know that we're supposed to get there that early. We get there like normal people, 30 minutes before church. We ended up getting put in the front row of the church with our kids. We couldn't get them into childcare. So by the power of the Holy Spirit, our kids just fall asleep halfway through worship, which was 90 decibels, which I'm gonna get to that part in a second, but it was not that loud is my point. It probably was barely 90 decibels. And my kids fall asleep, and my kids don't, I don't know if they napped at the time, but point is they fall asleep, and it was Sleeping Beauty,
all 3 of them.
That scene in Sleeping Beauty where all the fairies put everyone to sleep. That happens to my kids, which my wife and I are shocked. And then the baby wakes up, and my wife goes to feed the baby, in the baby crying room,
the nursing mother's room,
yeah. And in that room is Brandon's wife, Stephanie. So our wives, I guess, connect like very, very quickly. Somehow disclose how their husbands do similar work, and okay, and then so my sons' upper room services are 2 hours, an hour of worship, hour of sermon. My sons wake up like right at the end of the sermon, and like they're like groggy, and like all the energy kicks in like usual. Brandon knows. So it's crazy crowd. We're trying to get out. We run into Stephanie, and she's like, "Hey, I really want you to meet I guess she had said in the nursing mom's room, our husbands need to meet." So we're like, my wife's like, "Oh yeah, that'd be great," but then like we're just trying to get out of there, right? And we don't know anyone yet. We don't know anyone there. And Stephanie like sees us at the end. I meet her, and then she's like, "You have to meet my husband Brandon," and he's gone. Like we didn't know where he went. It's droves of people, this small space. He's gone, and fast forward. Like we're waiting and waiting and waiting. Stephanie's adamant, which I'm so grateful to God for that she was adamant about this, because like my kids are being crazy and we're just like, all right, whatever. And then I guess she gets a hold of him. We're going to meet him outside. So we go outside and I meet Brandon, and it's like nothing really of consequence. We just say hello.
What's up, dude? Cool,
yeah.
Man.
What's up? Yeah, you're an audio guy too. Yeah,
That's
nice kids, And then we walk away. And we're walking to our parking space, and this is kind of far away.
It's like a mile and a half walk.
Yeah, because we got there late. And little do we know, after a little bit, Brandon and Stephanie are following us, walking in their car.
We're driving them, like driving behind them as they were walking.
Trying to get out.
It's hilarious.
Yeah.
Creeper move.
Yes. I guess we were just covering the whole, whatever. And then they're like, Brandon opens the window. He's like, "Hey, you guys want to go to lunch?" And honestly, it was like a huge moment in our lives, looking back. Like whatever happened there in Brandon's heart and mind to ask us that, because we just, we ended up going to lunch. We became really good friends, our families, and the rest is history.
That whole lunch, we talked about like only sound stuff. That was,
and my kids were being horrible at the lunch because they had slept the whole service. So
that's okay.
So my wife's fending them off, just like looking over at me, like looking like she wants to kill me, and me and Brandon are talking about freaking C6. We're just
side chaining
kicks. So yeah, that was a story. But to get to the sound side of it, when I walked in, it was genuinely the best live audio I had heard in a church ever. And I mean, I was struck when I walked in.
He fell in love with a gated verb.
Yes. If you guys, like, I've been in I've probably been in as many or more churches than any 28-year-old in America. Okay. I've been in so many churches, and it was the best live sound I had heard at a church. And if you just show up a day that Brandon's mixing, you will feel the same way probably. But the point is, I hear it and I'm like, I look back, I'm like, who is this guy? And then that whole story played out. So really, really cool how we met, and we've already been able to work together, and now with Audiolink, it's popping off. So yeah, do you want to share anything of your side of the story?
Off. I mean, it was funny. Steph was just like, "Oh yeah, we met this really nice lady. Her name's Olympia." I said, "Olympia?" Like, not like Olivia,
That's a name.
No, Olympia. I was like, okay, cool. And she's like, and her husband does sound too. I'm like, well, that's cool. Like, I'm thinking like,
you're like, oh boy.
Corporate, like you've turned on a tabletop mic, or maybe 5 if you're really baller, 5 tabletop mics.
You were thinking Yamaha, CL1,
like QL, QL for sure, QL, or maybe those Allen and Heath analog boards that we all love.
God,
that are in every fellowship hall in the United States.
Whatever those are.
Yeah, exactly. Every church fellowship hall, like that little weird room that they have to have a soundboard in because the executive pastor will get up and talk about stuff over lunch.
Yes.
Anyway.
Yes. Those.
So yeah, it was fun. It was like, I just like, well, let's just go to lunch with them because we didn't have any lunch plans, and it was, it was a great lunch and the start of a bromance.
Yes, big time. Big time. Yeah.
That's crazy though.
Yeah.
Just looking back, it's a crazy time.
Yeah, it was movie-esque. It was movie-esque, like how dramatic the whole thing was with the kids falling asleep, the Stephanie holding us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You guys driving behind us. It was a movie, but yeah, I mean, it popped off so quick after that. But all right. Yeah, you made me think of one conversation we had the other day that, like, I wish if I had time, I literally wish I could like write a memoir book about, because it's been so integral to my journey. Is like, okay, so like I relate it in like basketball. So like before I was in,
not the WNBA, right?
No, I said basketball.
Sorry, that was the joke.
Shots fired.
That was a Dave Chappelle joke.
Yep. Basketball. So what happened was, for me, so my family moved from New York to Chicago when I was 6. Now at the time, I was obsessed with basketball, and like in my life, I've always been like obsessed with something, and I was obsessed. So, my parents started a church in Chicago, and it had a gym, and I was convinced that they only got the building because it had the gym, and I could play in there, to give them space.
That's true.
In addition to that, we had a hoop in our alley, and I literally would, I was just taking hundreds of shots a day. Like, I was obsessed. Okay. So when I was, similar to my audio experience coming down here, when I was growing up, like, I thought, I lived in a decent area in Chicago. Like, I thought I was one of the best basketball players around, genuinely. Like, I was convinced. I thought, look, in 6th grade, I thought I was going to the NBA. Like, I was convinced. In 6th grade, it's not like you're like a 2nd grader. Like 6th grade, you're starting to really have some like rational thoughts, see how good other people are. I was convinced I was going to the NBA. And then what happened was, I was doing really well in my school league, and then I'll get to the audio principle in a second. And then what happened was, I started playing AAU basketball. And in Chicago, there was one team that was actually like the best AAU team in the country. And somehow, through a connection, that's the people I got connected to. So I went and like tried out for them. And let's just say I was good enough to play on that team. But at that age, like I was like 11, 12. But we'd go to a tournament, and I would play like 30 seconds the whole tournament. Like, I was the worst. I was the worst player on the team by a country mile.
The 9th man.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Not even. Yeah. And but the thing was, what happened to me was, I had this experience playing basketball amongst one level of like competition. That was actually an easier level, and I like felt like I kind of excelled there. But then I got to a higher level, and then I got crushed. Mm-hmm. And if I would have stuck it out, maybe I could have broken through and gotten accustomed to all that. Mm-hmm. But I got crushed.
It's like when you play Madden football. And you're an all-pro.
All-pro, yeah.
And you think you're the man. You think like, oh man, I got these CPU guys. I'm yes. Tom Brady throwing dimes the whole way.
To Randy Moss.
Oh yeah, yeah. But then you play anyone else or on all Madden, for and you get 5 minutes and you get destroyed.
Yeah, the returning kickoffs.
Yeah, when you're on all Madden, the opposing team gains the ability to teleport. So
everything's glitching out.
Sorry, which is like
no, it's a perfect illustration. But what I'm getting at is, like, I feel like in audio, it's almost the opposite. It's the reality where when the lower levels, a lot of the times you're dealing with more difficult input sources. You're dealing with worse sounding input, like instruments, singers, worse rooms, and worse PAs, and worse consoles. And like, if someone can break through and actually start to see success and like create stuff that really sounds like music, which I want to talk about, like, when they get to higher levels, everything kind of opens up because a lot of those realities are not there, and their skill sets should and do like actually shine way more if they can get to those levels. You want to like talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, it feels like, I mean, in my experience, there's a lot of things that you have to unlearn or learn the place of. Like when you're at a lower level, like what you're saying, the room's bad, the PA is bad, the console's bad, the band is bad, nothing is bad. It's a turd polishing fest.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's bad. Like it's a phrase that I like to use. It's you can't polish a turd.
Yes,
it's still a turd.
Yeah.
It's
not going to shine.
I'm sorry if that's a really bad example or crude.
No, it's
but it's true because when you have a source that's just bad, I mean, or like a mic that's not where it should be, or the mic is blown and the drummer hit it. And it's got a crackle in it or something. Like there's a lot of obstacles to overcome. When you get to higher levels, there are fewer obstacles to overcome. It's just like mixing. When you're mixing at like top 10, like Billboard chart top 10 songs, like the mix engineer is doing 10% of the work.
Yeah.
The files that mix engineer is getting are
sauce already.
So good.
Sauce.
They're perfect. Yeah. Like they're ready to go.
He's just like applying his little like flair that they're paying, $4,000 for that day, exactly. and then he's dipping.
And as a mixing engineer, it feels like the people who put the effort into really make their files sound good, and like even if they don't have good mics, just good fundamentals on how to make things and overcome certain problems, which is basic, like I said, fundamentals. Those people that put that effort in will succeed more. But when you have, there's a lot of things that work against you when you're in a lower level. Like the room, like you have, like the room we were in this last weekend. There's like 4 seconds of ambient reverb. You can mute the PA, and you hear 82 hertz for 4 seconds.
Yeah, no,
like it's crazy.
Low end. Yeah. That was crazy.
Hear, just all these things. There's reasons it can't be good. There's all the reasons it can't be good. But with a solid, like just fundamental understanding of music and what the room needs, which I think any basic engineer who's been exposed to a larger world, like like someone who's maybe got to mix with the master subscription or something, like can really
plug there.
Can really plug for the 6 people that listen to this.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying like the fundamentals are so important.
Yeah.
At every level. And then when you get to the higher levels, you have to unlearn because you're not always fixing problems.
Yes.
Like, you're not like...
No, that piece is what I feel like I've experienced the most, where I was like, okay, I felt like some of my skills, once I got to higher things, I felt like some of my skills like flourished, and I was able to create sounds that I hadn't even heard previously. I hadn't, they say like you can only make as good of sound as you've heard. And it's kind of true. But like I felt like because I had been doing so much processing and so much work on stuff and gotten so nuanced on stuff, I got some results that were like disproportionately good, I felt, to my skill level. But then other things, I was like, wait, something's wrong. Like I'm messing this stuff up because I was like over doing stuff or just doing stuff I didn't need to do, that's kind of what
problems that you think are there but are not actually there.
You just assume they're going to be there because that's what you do when you do sound.
It's like cutting 400, like
just
why
incessantly.
Well, it's because it's always bad. Well, is it always bad?
Yeah, it's just that church you've mixed in since you were 14 that it's bad.
And maybe most of the time it is bad, but not every time.
Yeah.
And maturity comes in and like being at those higher levels when you can identify that moment when you don't need to make that cut or when you don't need to make that mixed choice that you've always done before.
Yeah.
Which is super interesting, but few people actually learn and have the ability to get to that point where you understand it, identify it, and make the right decision.
It's a long road to there.
Yeah. Most people are...
It's years and years.
Yeah, exactly. And so like the number of people that can actually do that are very few.
Yeah.
Very few.
That right there is it. Like... that has been made so apparent to me recently is like those, you can watch all the videos. Like I felt like at a certain point I watched every video on the internet about mixing, especially like live sound.
All of them,
like
Chris Lodaggi. Take that 10K, slam it.
Yeah, no. All of them, all the Waves
15.
videos.
I like it.
There's this one, like once I got into Waves plugins, this one with Chris Stevens. Shout out to Chris Stevens, wherever you are. Because I watched the video of you, the Waves video you made, easily 400 or 500 times. Easily. And the video's 30 minutes long. I mean, that's a good chunk of my life watching that video.
Yeah.
Because he broke down his whole file on there. And he's so detailed. And like even now, that like, I mean, this is in 2014. And even now, I feel like I could reference back to that video and like learn things still and see like, oh, interesting. What he did on the whatever, he's doing all these crush groups and stuff. Oh, interesting. This and that. Like different stuff would stand out to me at different times. But I'm totally with you. I think there's, to piggyback that point, I think there's like a long road with any art, right? Yeah. There's a long road to actually get to the point. And, when you're around a photographer, like Gabriel, who's here with us, like he just shot photos for my family and like, he's just making it look so easy. He's just like, oh yeah, go over there. Like he's not looking at I don't feel like he's looking at anything. He's just taking these photos. Yeah. And I was just like, what the heck? Like, how are these going to be good? Like we take photos out here all the time and they're like ridiculous. But it's the reason why is because of the journey. Like he's just all those little nuances, like he's got them under his hands. Yeah. And that's why I felt that way about my mix to your mixes, because like there's just a different thing going on, and I'm grateful for that, because one of my frustrations earlier on is I didn't have people around that were like further in the journey of this specific nuance thing than me, so I'm grateful for that. And it's not insecurity. I'm not trying to like puff you up. Like I love that. So great. Do you want to talk about first, before we go into the Audiolink stuff, could you share if there's people that are young audio engineers? So like you started doing sound at church, but like you feel like the bug has bit you. So you're like, oh, like I'm pretty good at this. I have a good ear. People are telling you that. Like you could be good at this. Like what would you tell them to practice? Because I feel like early on for me, I was practicing what I thought made stuff sound good, but I know now I was practicing the wrong stuff. Like I wasn't thinking about it the right way. What would you encourage guys to do to become better? For sure, it's not actually getting on a board and mixing. It is identifying what you think is good and learning to judge that against what is actually good. So like a layman's terms way of putting that would be training your ear. So like getting into a place where you can identify like, I like this mix. I like this music. I like this style. I like the way that kick drum sounds. I don't like this one, or I don't like the way this is. And learning why it is you do and why it is you don't like each thing. And identify every part of the mix. Listen to every texture, every detail, because it's not like the muscle memory comes in from actually doing it and practicing. But in this case, it's 99% of the battles you pick, or the battles you're in rather, not the ones you pick, the battles that you are in are you using your ears to identify an issue. So like as a musician, it's very akin to like perfect pitch and relative pitch and how important those are. Being able to identify what key you're in when you're singing, when you're a guitar player, like what chord are they playing, just by hearing it. And that's super important. Yeah. In sound, it's equally important, but you're not just dissecting the key. If you're like tuning vocals live, then yes, that's important. And the most frequently used app on my phone is the piano app. So like you turn the PA down so you can hear your phone. Ding, 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 ding. Whatever.
10,000
people in the room and we're figured out the key with a keyboard app next to our ear.
Or you're trying to figure out which key the pad is in before the song starts, and then your phone's volume is all the way up. So bing, bing, bing.
It's C sharp.
But it's really important to identify your ear and the way that you hear music, because the way that you hear music is uniquely yours, right? But there are certain things that genuinely transcend individualism and the individual's experience and make things objective. So like everyone agrees, like Taylor Swift's album sounds amazing.
Of course.
Why does it sound amazing? Right? What makes that universally agreed upon? So what are those things? And like John Mayer, same thing. Any artist, Katy Perry, whoever, like what makes those things good? And and most of the time it's just your ability to hear the problem and practicing identifying. And then when you're like on the console in a live setting, identifying the issue in the room, right? Are you hearing the PA or are you hearing the room?
Yeah.
Are you hearing like a room resonance or whatever it is?
I didn't think on those levels for so long.
Yeah. Like, are you hearing like that there's an 800?
Yes. Like if I just made one cut on the PA, I wouldn't for those like 8 years have been
well, so
cutting that on every channel.
Perfect example. And this is a perfect example of this. I flew out to Los Angeles. This is probably 7 years ago, 6 years ago. And I was doing a corporate event for this company that they'd always like do this thing at Laguna Niguel. There's a Ritz-Carlton there in south of Los Angeles. And it's amazing, beautiful. And we're in this ballroom and like overlooks the ocean, it's so pretty. And we're like, they put the AV booth in the very corner of the room, like on one side. And so it's like the corner, you don't get, nothing's aimed at you. You're just hearing basically reflections. And so the show producer comes over to me and he says, "Hey, there's a ring in that person's voice." And I looked up at him and I said, "No, there's not. It's just where we're sitting. It's the room. I guarantee you no one else hears this." And he's like, "No, it's there." I said, "You should go listen. This is not good advice for following orders, by the way.
Tell the boss to go walk.
No,
tell the boss to take a hike."
I wasn't being rude. I was like, "Bro, it's not there. Yeah. It's just not there."
Yeah.
And so he goes out, he comes back, and he's like, "You're right," and he sits down. And the point is, like, that I was able to identify that we're in the corner. Things aren't going to sound normal.
This is the room. This is not the PA.
Yeah, exactly. So
and this is not even the whole room.
Yeah, it's just a corner where all you get is like the trash can signals.
Yeah,
Anyway, that skill, identify what you're hearing and why you like it or why you don't like it.
Yeah.
Because a lot of guys just, I don't like it. Oh, well, why? Why is that?
Yeah.
And they can't articulate. And it takes maturity. It takes years of learning how to articulate and build the language around, I don't like this. Why is it that I don't like this?
Yeah, what's not pleasing about it?
And let me tell you, nothing will like fortify your skills in that area more than doing monitors for somebody. For an artist. So like doing monitors for, I feel like it's like this or like not this. I feel like I'm in a bathroom.
It feels
it feels this, it feels this. And that's like,
maybe
those
it's those
are
215s
words
you're wearing.
That's language that guys use because they're just trying to articulate and and A+ for effort on the on the art, like attempting to articulate the way you feel.
It.
But, identifying what they're hearing when they use that language.
Yeah.
Like this is just all like nothing like doing monitors will ever like hone your skills when it comes to that stuff.
No, I agree with you 100%. One thing I thought of as you were talking was I think the main breakthrough happened for me to when I got to the point that I like started considering myself a professional audio engineer. Like there was a turning point. Like when I was like, okay, I feel like I could do this anywhere. Like, you know what I mean? I'm sure you had a moment where you're like, I'm a professional audio engineer now. Like
I have not had that moment, but I understand what you mean.
Okay, well, if you get paid to do something for like 10 years, you're a professional, all right? So, but I felt like the big turning point for me where like I liked what I was doing, people liked what I was doing when it came to live sound, came after me beginning to go to shows. because I remember a few shows that I went to. One was in Chicago suburb. There's two distinct ones, really three distinct ones. One was a random one. It was, who was it? It was Josh Garrels opening for John Mark McMillan.
Nice.
And
not even John Mark McMillan. Josh Garrels.
Yeah, it was both of them. It was both of them.
You said Josh Garrels opening for this guy. So I was
yeah. No, I'm saying, yeah, both of them. But the point was, like, it was when I had started getting in the tunnel, like really thinking about what I was doing and trying to get better. But I heard the PA there, and it was just like a Nexo PA. I recognized. I didn't know anything about PAs, but that was what we had at my church. And when I heard the PA and I heard the sound, I was like, what in the world? It was like the upper room moment I had with Brandon. I was like, what in the world? Like, this stuff is live? This isn't like tracks?
Yeah.
That moment. And like the low end, I like felt it in my chest, but the mix was not quiet. I mean, it was not loud.
Yeah.
Like, I was actually wanting it to be louder, but I felt the low end. Like, the physical experience was there in the right way. And I remember it was one of the first time I saw waves as well. The engineer, I think, was like John Mark McMillan's brother or something. And he looked really stressed. I actually tried to talk to him and he blew me off. He just ignored me. But I'm still so grateful for him wherever he is. No shade at all. Like, literally, I'm so grateful for you, Mr. McMillan, wherever you are, because that mix was so good. And it was on a PreSonus console, and you were running waves with it.
That says a lot.
No, it says a whole lot. Still, I kind of remember what it sounded like, and it was sauce.
Yeah.
And he was stressed because there was like a buzz, and he was having a hard time. It was no shade at him. I probably would have ignored me too. But point is, I heard that show, and I remember I started calling other sound guys I knew. And I'm like, can I tell you about my setup? What am I doing wrong? I'm doing something just categorically wrong. Like, that I don't have it sounding anything like that. And then I saw Paramore live. And when I saw Paramore live, I was just blown away. Like, oh my gosh. But and then I saw Bethel live in Milwaukee in maybe like, it was right before I got married. So this is probably like 2016.
Oh yeah. That's the Greeley days.
Yes.
Shout out to Chris Greeley, legend.
Yes, legend. And he actually wasn't mixing. Some other dude was, but this dude, I stood myself. Yes, it was at Milwaukee Theater. I'll never forget it. It was the best live sound I had ever heard in my life to date by a country mile. Like, by a country mile. And I stood right in front of house. Like, I was like 5 feet from the engineer, standing right in front of him. And it was an amazing spiritual experience that night, but my wife was there with me. But I just remember the mix was unlike anything I'd ever heard. And it was so quiet. And in retrospect, I feel like he was just flexing how quiet he could make the vocal. And it was still intelligible. Yeah. And everyone was loving it. And the vocals were so like, they're like strangely buried. Yeah. And like, I probably wouldn't mix like that now, but it still was incredible. And he was just getting the volume way down and gave himself headroom for the whole night. And like, by the end, he probably got up to like 94 or whatever. But point is, those moments like shaped me wanting to get better. And they also showed me what can be done. Yeah. And like, and I think for anyone that's like getting started, like, you need to go hear sound consistently. It's like saying you want to become a professional baseball player and you don't watch any baseball. You don't go to any baseball games. You don't take in baseball content.
You have to give yourself like goalposts to aim at, for sure.
Yes, yes. And I don't even know if Brandon's there or past what I heard that night for sure. I don't even know if I'm there yet, but I'm way closer than I was then. Yeah. Way, way, way closer.
What's cool is that like during that age, like I remember Bethel's Have It All came out.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And the album with the heart, like the wooden heart, what it looked like.
Yes.
The human heart. It looked like it was wood.
Shine, shine,
Yeah.
that one.
And it's just
it had
the
that
whole
one.
record. You can have it all. You know.
Yeah.
Just the way it hit, I just loved it. The way, the way that Chris mixed that album. It's such a, it's such a good album. Like overall, the songs are amazing.
Insane. Yeah.
And yeah, it's literally like I remember after that came out, I was like, "Who's the guy that mixed this?" And it was Chris Greeley, right? And so I followed him on Instagram, and he posted he'll post random. He
No. I'm going to know about whatever you say right now. I'm going to know.
I don't know if he does this anymore, but he posted this one screenshot.
Dang it!
Of or a picture of his
SPL meter.
Yeah, it was the Manny distortion on his gated verb that he used, and so I was like, oh, I'm gonna try that. So I took a screenshot of it, and
you probably think
I tried
we're
to
such creepers.
I mean, bro, all of us did this. All of us engineers did this.
Yes.
Some of the young guys now probably don't know about all this because it's all on production online. Yeah,
man, all right.
Big plug.
Yes.
Anyway, but just going after a sound that was something you really liked was so inspirational. It was so I still use gated verbs on a lot of records that I mix and in live stuff because it does something to the snare that you can't find anywhere else,
Yeah.
And it's so cool that that was something that we all grasped onto because we loved the way that he made his drums sound. David Whitworth playing drums, it's really hard to make that sound bad,
To our earlier point.
Yeah, the source is very important.
The source matters.
But the way he took that and artistically made it sound more like what it was, which were awesome drums.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
He made it sound more like awesome drums.
Yeah.
That's
I guarantee
cool,
you the first David Whitworth's hearing them oh my gosh, yes.
And
he's not this is just barely
and so as hearing that, it's wow, there's at Upper Room we tried not to use we leaned into replacing drums on live stream a lot because a lot of inconsistency, whatever else. But then we came to a point where we're I was talking with Jason. I was we should just pull the trigger off and just make it work, and we did. And so we found a formula, so to speak, that works almost every time
for all the different drums that come in.
And there's a lot of different drummers,
different
that come
snares, every service,
different consistencies, different all these. But it works probably 80 to 90% of the time. And that's more, in my opinion, that's more honoring because you're these guys worked on their tone. Or they didn't. I don't know.
We're gonna find out.
But the guys that did work on their tone, it's honoring to them. And so that's cool. Anyway, all that to say.
No, that's great.
I'm very grateful for Mr. Greeley because between him and Sam Gibson, my life was changed.
Yeah.
The first time I heard "Come Away," Jesus Culture "Come Away," 2011. Man. That record rocked my world.
Did that one have that one on there?
That was One Thing Remains.
Yeah,
no. That was the last song.
Yes, dude.
I remember that.
With just the kick rolling the whole song.
And then you can tell they turned the click off because it massively sped up.
Yes. Well, when they start clapping. Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, sorry for that tangent.
No. It's fine. So I want to tell you guys a little bit about our company, Audiolink. So with my company, back in 2017, I started providing sound engineers for churches. And really what that was, just placing my friends that were engineers at church customers that I had started to take on as integration or consulting, whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. And people I was helping with their sound. And that grew. And I started getting a lot of sites. And that left Illinois and it started going around the country. But the problem was we got to a certain point where I realized that there were a bunch of bottlenecks and problems with scaling it. Mm-hmm. And at that point, it's a legitimate business.
Yeah.
There's people, I had a team of people managing it. The scheduling, the logistics.
Putting someone who's qualified into a room, they might or might not be qualified to mix.
Yes, finding engineers who were, so there was really this vision to train engineers to be able to do that and wherever they are. And I just realized eventually that this was not, it was not sustainable. So we got around like 30 sites at its height and in like 5 different states, whatever. And then I was like, you know what? I can't really grow this, and it's becoming very, very stressful. So what that kind of seeded was this idea of, okay, well, what's the problem here? What's the problem? The problem is these churches don't have good sound. They don't have people that have been through even 100th of the journey that's necessary to really deliver high quality audio in any environment.
Yeah.
Right. And what we needed to do, really what the capital C church needs, as cliche as it sounds, is what it needs is they need the people that are connected to them. And physically doing that in person was not possible. The problem was like the distance and location, not to mention like them making that their church. Like even if they all were distributed across the world perfectly, them making that their church.
This is just for context.
Yeah.
Most churches in America, what is it, like 96% of churches in America are under, 1,200 people or something like that?
Yeah.
It's I don't know what the exact number is. I could be way off, but it's
you're right there. There's 150,000 evangelical churches, and only 2,000 of them are over 1,500 people.
Yeah, so that's what's called a mega church, right?
Yep.
So the problem you're talking about is addressing what? So 97%.
Yes, all of them.
Conservatively, 97% of churches in America specifically.
Yes,
but probably even more so the world.
Oh my gosh.
Like not just America, but the world.
Yes.
Because you have, I don't know how many churches, evangelical churches there are in the world, but there are probably at least 1 million.
Oh.
Realistically.
Easily.
Yeah.
Easily. Yeah. So yeah, there was kind of a dream that's like, okay, well, let's just imagine everyone had the sound that Upper Room has. At least even just on the mixing side, which we'll talk about. But if they had the rig and the mixing capability and team that Upper Room has, what would these churches be like? And what would the church be like? What impact would that have? Being an audio guy, both of us know, we've both gone into church services where we saw how ministries were hindered and how faith was not inspired and how people didn't engage because of sound that was really lacking. I've seen that firsthand. People are like, no, it's just because you're a sound guy. I'm like, no, God responds to faith and people are inspired. The reason we have the instruments, the Bible says it, but the Bible says it for a reason because it inspires faith in people and then they worship God and God responds to their faith. And the sound is like the vehicle in between those first 2 steps. So I was like, man, if this existed at a global level, like if everyone had that sound, the church would look completely different in my mind. And like, so pretty much I started thinking about that idea and I was like, and I was reading Elon Musk's book at the same time, his new book. And I was like, okay, wait, anything's possible.
It's a great book, by the way.
Oh, phenomenal.
Yeah.
You should read it. Anything's possible. And so I thought, okay, well, I guess theoretically, if they're out there, we just need to connect them. We're almost out of time here.
No, you're good.
We just need to connect them and to these churches somehow. And the only idea here is that it's done remote. So then once I said remote, I kind of called you and I was like, okay, here's this idea. I remember I was walking around my neighborhood and we're like, okay, well, in order to do this, we're both triggered at this idea.
Yes. Very.
Because we were both traumatized. We're both traumatized from live sound.
Yeah.
But we both also know firsthand, if you actually do all of the fundamentals properly, like we were just talking about, you can establish a real baseline of predictable success.
Yeah.
It can be done.
And I think that's been proven just at least on the remote side for the last several years with the ability to do live streams.
Yes.
Which during COVID, at least here in the States, we've like like every church in America started doing live streaming, essentially during COVID, and then every church was faced with, what do we need to do a live stream well, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, and then that bled into the next logical, which is remote live stream, which when Audio Movers kind of really took over, you know, like we can listen to high definition, like high fidelity audio remotely. Yes. Stream it in real time with next to zero latency, considering distance, next to zero latency.
Yeah. 1/10 of a second. Yeah.
Exactly. And you can do all that at full resolution.
Which is insane.
I can control a computer in like any other part of the world.
With internet.
With reliable connected internet, which I think most places on Earth, especially with Starlink and with all these other, you know, whatever else, like most places, especially in America, are going to have reliable internet. Even if it's slow, it's reliable.
Correct.
So, which, you know, that we've overcome that. And I've had a season where I mixed live stream remotely, and even sometimes we'll do that at Upper Room, because we, like, if our live stream engineer is running late, we can remote into the computer, get Pro Tools open, and get everything happy and prepped for our live stream remotely, which is a fail-safe.
It is. Like, being late kind of becomes impossible a little bit. It just needs, like, pure negligence at that point.
Yeah.
You know, so, no, yeah. I mean, so, yeah, I guess to kind of explain just a little more about it, so that was kind of like step one. And then it just became like, okay, why are we triggered by this? And it created for me a list of reasons. Like, why do I think that this is not a good idea? To mix, okay, and now we're talking about mixing front of house for these churches. Like, that's their main issue.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know any churches with great front of house audio. I know very few of those, period. I don't know many churches with great front of house audio that have like a bad live stream. You know, it's at least passable, you know, like front of house is really the John the Baptist, right? It goes first. So,
yes,
very good Bible joke.
Yes.
So
all that to say, there are some churches here that are mega churches that with 10,000 or more people every weekend that have subpar live sound that are just not acceptable.
Yes, in-room sound that like no one's that happy about. They're all over the place. And like with my integration business, I encountered so many different churches, and I could genuinely say 9 of 10 of them were extremely unhappy with their sound. And it's part of why I was interacting with them, obviously. But like...
because they would reach out to you and say, hey, help us with this.
I would get connected on some level. But like, to be honest, a lot of them, I was getting connected about an LED wall or about cameras or about, like, think about during COVID. Like, everyone was just thinking video.
Yeah.
But all of these people were also like, oh no, sound is atrocious, but this is just something we've dealt with. Yeah. Like, we don't know what to do. You know what I mean? Like it's this. We've just accepted this level of communication.
Some pastors don't even know that it can be better.
No.
Yeah.
Like, and that, okay, so like what Brandon just said, I think is one of the biggest drivers for me. Is like, I didn't realize that live sound could sound like a record, as inspiring as a record does, but coming through this big PA system. I didn't know that that was possible until I heard those shows that I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
And so really the mission of Audiolink is that we could bring that experience to every church with access to internet.
Yeah. There's a huge part of that removes, like, think about the practicals of the gospel. It removes like what's the right word? It removes blockage or removes obstacles between what is being said and what is being heard.
Oh my gosh.
Because like if there's always this issue, then nothing is like the listener or the church attendee has to overcome things to engage with the experience of the room.
Yes,
and,
whether they realize they are or not.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
And you want that to be easy. You want it to be an easy thing for them to engage. And most of the time, bad sound is the result of ignorance, right? People they don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
It's no one's fault. It's just we don't know.
Yeah.
And the ignorance combined with like this is what we have, this is all we can deal with, and the cost of getting a new sound system or whatever their perceived obstacle in their head, which is, it'll cost $100,000 to get a new board, to get a new whatever else. Like those are all obstacles that you don't understand. It's just like this too big a thing, so you don't think about it and you just accept what it is.
Yeah.
And all of the attendees will feel something similar because it's just, there's a guitar solo happening, but I can't hear what's happening. I can't engage with what that guitar player is doing, not only like physically, but in the spirit. Like I can't like feel
that moment that's supposed to be created right now.
Yeah, because I mean, being in upper room, musicians prophesy. It's a thing.
Oh yes,
like it's a whole thing. And if I can't hear what you're doing, I can't engage and receive. And that's even more so with pastor's mic. He walks up, it's not on, or it feeds back, and all these things. And certain pastors, they'll handle that really well. Other ones don't.
It derails the whole service,
and it creates this obstacle in their mind. They get self-conscious. It's all this stuff that just
affects everything.
It affects every element. And
everyone's embarrassed when there's any type of like sound issue, which we could probably talk horror stories for days, but like everyone becomes embarrassed in the room. All the listeners, all the congregants are embarrassed. The band's embarrassed. The pastor's embarrassed. The sound guy's the most embarrassed. Everyone's embarrassed, and it's like, I kind of feel bad on one level too, because like this whole like live sound thing was imposed upon the church. I didn't sign up for it.
Yeah.
It was imposed upon the church, and it became this standard, just like live streaming did during COVID. And it's like paintings became imposed upon the church.
Yeah.
And what if there's not a painter there?
Yeah.
Like that's a problem.
Michelangelo is 1 in a million, bro.
Exactly. Yeah. Brandon Myers. What? I'm joking.
Nobody, precisely zero people, are calling me Michelangelo.
Except for no, I'm not calling you Michelangelo yet. But yeah. So yeah, that was really the vision. So all that being said, we pretty much have made a company where our mission is to end the problem of sound, to just end it. And we believe, like, with 100% of our hearts, that that's possible.